This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon. We'll call the board meeting together here or to order. I'll get it right. So may I ask that everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent. So, very good. Glad everyone is here. One of the things that on the agenda, the copy that I have, we will be on, when we get to the building grounds and maintenance, we're going to be striking item number D on there, which is the project coordinator for the asphalt project. We'll be adding on our agenda, we have HomeCo representatives here today. The bigwigs from HomeCo are here. They're going to talk to us about a new structure that we're looking forward to. And then also, before we really get together, I do want to announce that the board did meet in an emergency executive session on March 24th that was not posted in advance. And the reason that we had this emergency meeting is that we had an email from our legal team regarding a specific property that the board needed to make some actions on for them to move forward within the next 12, 24 hours. So we did meet in executive session on March 24th as an emergency, and it was the one topic that we talked about. So let's move forward, and we'll do a roll call to order.
Board President Barbara Fugelberg.
Here.
Board Vice President Ron Woodward.
Here.
Board Secretary Marilyn Sorensen.
Here.
Board Treasurer Becca Paulson.
Here.
Board of Director Marie Besham. Marie.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Here.
Board of Director Steve Deal.
Present.
Board of Director Roberta Ernest.
Here.
All present. Homeowner statement period. In person, speaker may not speak for no more than 2 minutes. If attending virtually, please mute your audio. Please use the chat option for your questions. Comments should be addressed to the concerns of the motion before the board takes final action on the item under formal discussion on the table. No negative comments directed at residents, employees of the association, or the board of directors will be allowed.
Thank you. So Jill, where did you put HomeCo on the agenda?
First,
Okay, let's have them up next.
All right.
So Stacy and Jamie, I think that there's many residents here who are not familiar with you. So if you could introduce yourselves.
I'd be
And
glad
then-
to. Thank
thank
you,
you.
Barb, for the introduction. My name is Stacy Mall. I am the COO of HomeCo. Thank you for having us today. We're just going to take a few minutes of your agenda time today to talk about a new structure. But before we start, I'd like to let Jamie introduce herself. In fact, do you want to give me the other mic?
Hi, I'm Jamie Nelson. I'm one of the executive directors at HomeCo based out of Prescott, but do work with Jill quite often. Been there for 10 years and have been here numerous times. So I'm glad to be back.
Thank you, Jamie. So one of the reasons why we're here today, aside from seeing all you guys, was to talk about a new employee structure. And throughout, gosh, Jill, many years, Jill's reached out several times with a SOS smokescreen help, being overloaded, things in the office and the management and the staff have really been bottleneck only through the GM, which I think throughout the years has been somewhat of a disservice for Jill not to have what I call that partner here at a high level partner that can take on a portion of the responsibilities, what it takes to manage such a large community as Happy Trails. So what we've done here is just provided just a couple slides. And at the end, anybody who has questions, please raise your hand, or if there's anybody on the chat, we'd love to hear from you too. So next slide, where's Michael? Where's Michael? Where is he?
Up there, back there.
Oh, hi, Mike. Okay. So one of the things before we go into it, some of you may not be able to see this. As soon as what we call the manager of operations position is filled, this new employee structure will be launched, and we will definitely make sure that this is sent out via email. It's posted on the website. I even think it would be a good idea to have some hard copies in the office. So I'm going to hand it over to Jamie, because if you let me talk, I'll talk through the whole presentation. So go ahead.
we were trying to figure out who was going to say what. And I said, well, we all know what's going to happen because she takes control of the whole situation. So I'll talk for a few minutes while she allows me. And if you don't mind, I'm going to turn around just for a second because that one's a little hard for me to see. But as Stacy said, when we do hire an operations manager, this structure will go into effect where we will split the duties so that the items that Jill likes to handle the most, I would say.
And her strengths.
Will be under her realm, and the other will be under the operations manager's realm. And this can be fluid. We're not saying it's set in stone. The operations manager may get in here with Jill and they may decide that something needs tweaked, and that's definitely quite all right if that happens.
Next slide, Mike. And just because there could be some confusion with this new employee structure, we will make sure that we send out who to contact, and who to contact will be a variation of Jill, the new operations manager, Mike Nice, who's in the back, and Dawn. So we provide very clear direction on, as residents, who do you contact for your day-to-day needs. Okay, Mike, next slide. Next slide. And we did include a fun fact here, and I'm with Jamie, I have a difficult time reading, but essentially it is common in the industry, in the HOA industry, that if you have a community that has 1,000 plus units and has on-site staff along with facilities, there is typically a general manager and a high-level operations position person. So it's something that I think that we have been missing here at Happy Trails for quite a while. The other thing I'd like to mention is some of the benefits of the new structure. Just to name a few, we talked about better communication, improved response times, increased employee morale, reduce potential burnout, higher focus on health and safety operations, improved vendor and employee oversight, and provides backup if either leadership position wants, they're sick or a vacation or a leave of absence. So it's a good crossover training too. And next slide, Mike. So with that, I just really we just went through a really quick overview, but if anybody in the audience or on the chat has any questions, I'd love to take the time to answer your questions. Yes. What was your name? Hi, Pat. Okay.
In a quick glance up there, I did not see anybody covering IT. Is that something that a new person would be in charge of, would be the oversight of the website and providing IT support?
Yes, that falls under the
100%.
operations manager.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things when we were talking to the board was almost insistent on somebody being able to wrap their arms around that aspect here. So absolutely. Oh, Jim?
Jim Marion, lot 1125. Is this a budgeted item or what will it cost us?
I'll answer that in that we've had in the budget the assistant manager position that's been unfilled for at least a year and a half, 2 years. And so it is a budgeted position. There may be some additional dollars we might need to take a look at robbing from Peter to pay Paul. But the position's been there. It's just a different title.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yeah, come here.
As the new employees you're talking about, as the general manager, shouldn't they have some qualifications like your PCAM, all those nice initials that I have after my name that I work for? Why don't you put someone in charge that has the background to do it?
Well, I can halfly answer your question. The person that we're looking for and the candidates that we've been screening all have absolute HOA management experience. So anyone coming in, they couldn't have, they were the Best Buy manager for 10 years. So to answer your questions, we are looking for a very qualified candidates.
Well, and Stacy too, I just wanted to clarify that Jill remains the general manager.
Yes, Jill remains the general manager, and Jill is certified. What are your last initials? They're not
Yes,
SOB?
yes, Jill
what are
is
they?
certified, yes.
CMCA. Jill's a CMCA.
Certified, yeah.
There's a question on the chat as to why are we getting the position now? We've been without it for so long.
The question is, we've been without the position for a while. Why are we filling it now? Essentially paraphrasing. The position should have been filled much sooner. And I think, Jamie and I talked about, and Jill shaking her head. Again, because we've been remiss maybe in the last year and a half filling the position, certainly wouldn't mean that we'd want to go forward with a continued vacancy. It really has a snowball effect on the staff. It causes the existing employees to take on extra load. Our concern as HomeCo is that it could potentially cause some burnout. And we're in the business of, retaining employees, fostering employees, and definitely providing all employees the help that they need.
Beverly Youngren, 2371. I'm not a speed reader, and what you put up there, I have no clue what you're talking about. I couldn't read it very clearly, and I didn't see any flyer. I'm not saying it's a good or bad idea. I just absolutely have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, that makes two of us being able to read the screen. So I guess the question would be, it's a proposed, does the board have any objection on posting the PowerPoint as a proposed model?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I think the best thing for us to do is get it posted on the website, and then everybody can review the PowerPoint from their home. But I think right now, the purpose of us being here is the conceptual, letting you know that we were going to have a manager of operations to take some of the high-level management off Jill. Some of the fine details may still need to be worked out. But what I can also do is when they post that online, provide my contact information and Jamie's, and I certainly welcome a reach out from anybody who's reviewed it and wants to reach back out to us with several questions or any questions. Okay. Yep, I'll come to you.
I'm Todd Box. I'm on 1527. I had two questions. One is this a promotable position with somebody you already have, or is this someone coming from outside? And the second question goes along with that. You said it could have a snowball effect on the rest of the staff. So when you said that, it made me think this must be a promotable position with someone we already have on staff.
So the answer is, this is somebody who's currently employed with HomeCo. We already let Happy Trails steal Mike from us. Hi, Mike. So this would be an outside employee who's applying for this position. And the snowball effect, let me just clarify, is it a positive way when you have, 100 duties that need to be done in a day, and now you're adding somebody else who's a heavy lifter to the mix? That's the snowball effect, positive on other employees. This is your last one, Jim. Oh, Jim said, what is the time frame? As we all know, or maybe we don't all know, but we do have on a global level a shortage of employees, people that apply. I do have what I would say a couple good candidates. And I would foresee it more of a this happening more in the short term, as long as we can get through negotiations. So Jim, we're actively looking for this individual. Okay.
So Stacy, I just make a point that
Yes.
just for the rest of the residents to know that the board has been meeting in executive sessions about once a month, discussing this with HomeCo and looking at the job descriptions of people so that we can make the position, particularly Jill's, more palatable and doable, and that she gets joy from her job and doesn't get burnt out. And this morning, as you know, that we posted that we did have an executive session where we did interview 2 candidates. And then we met with HomeCo, discussed the pros and cons of both of those candidates, and they're going to be moving forward with starting the negotiation process with them.
Okay, thank you, Barb. Okay, before I hand over the mic, is there anybody question in the audience or on chat that I can address at this moment?
There was just another question here who said, who's going to do the IT duty so Mike can do the best job that he can? So that is just reiterating your answer to Pat McCormick, that the IT components are included in the operations manager's job description.
That is correct, Barb, yes. Well, thank you guys for letting us jump in on your board meeting, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. Okay, now to get on to the boring part, the rest of the meeting. We do have a long agenda, and hopefully we can move some of these through pretty quickly. First thing on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes from the March 10th meeting.
I'll second. Okay. Any questions or comments from any of the board members regarding the minutes that we received in our packet? Seeing none, anything from any residents? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the March 10th, 2022 board meeting, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good. So moves. The financial report from February of 2022. Becca, can I get a motion?
I move to accept the February 22 financials.
Second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Any questions or comments regarding the financial report from the February 2022 from the board? Oh, they have it memorized. Anything from any of the residents? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the financials from February 20 of 22, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Great, motion passes. The committee reports, there's nothing from the budget committee, and building grounds and maintenance has quite a number of things. So Mike Perry, can you stand up? And notice he's standing up a little better than he was before. So the first thing on the agenda, Steve, can I get a motion regarding the T-Mobile cell tower?
I move that the board approve
I move that the board approve Coal Creek Consulting LLC to install a T-Mobile cell tower on the east side of the North Storage area.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. We have a motion to approve that Coal Creek Consulting would install a T-Mobile cell tower on the east side of the North Storage. Jill, can you give us some background on cell towers history here that we have here in Happy Trails?
We currently have an AT&T tower out here in the parking lot. They had approached us back in probably 2006 on applying that and putting that cell tower there. They paid us rent for a couple of years and then they purchased that spot. And just recently, this last fall, Cold Creek reached out about putting a T-Mobile cell tower on the resort, and they looked around and found that the best place for reception and not interfering in anything would be in the North Storage.
So when we had it in 2006, you're talking the one that looks like a palm tree.
The one out
here.
in the parking lot.
We received lease payments for that, or a monthly stipend or annual, and that stopped. Am I correct in that?
We received monthly ones until they purchased it.
Until they purchased it. Okay, and do you recall how much we used to get from that, just ballpark?
It was, I want to say
It
maybe
wasn't
close.
much.
I want to say like maybe $500-600 a month.
Okay, all right, thanks. Jim, you were on the board then, weren't you? Jim Marion? Okay, well, okay, it was going to be a pop quiz here, Jim. Come on, quick. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Perry, what can you tell us about this contract and the space?
Okay, this cell tower is, like you said, it's just almost directly north of our current maintenance shop on the inside of the north storage. They've asked for a strip of land that is 30 feet deep and 60 feet wide, which will take up 6 current spaces in that parking storage area. Okay, this tower is 65 feet tall, and the setbacks required by the city of Surprise makes it have to be centered in that wall so that it cannot fall on any habitable structure.
So any questions? If I could ask the board to speak first to the contract details and then the location details. So are there any questions regarding the contract itself?
Yeah, do we know why they want to increase from a 30-year lease to a 50-year lease, and what's the benefit of that?
So what was the last thing you said, from a 30 to a 50, and that's what?
From a 30 to a 50-year lease, and what exactly is the benefit for us on that?
Well, all I can tell you is that we're going to get $1,200 a month for the next 20 years longer than the original lease was at 30 years. Now it's at 50, which is $14,000 a year for another 20 years. That's the benefit to us. I don't know what the benefit for them is.
Okay.
Also, if they have other carriers piggyback on it, we will get additional funds.
Okay.
For every other carrier and stuff that piggybacks, we get additional funds.
I noticed too that the price goes up, where the lease payment goes up 10% every 5 years for times 8. I also noticed in the contract that they would require egress 24/7 into that space.
Yeah, that's doable. All they need is the combination to the gate, and
Okay.
they'll have access.
I also noticed that the contract does have a 60-day out termination. So
Yes.
that if
Yes.
both parties decide that we don't like each other anymore, it's not meeting our needs, we could get out in 60 days. I'm sure there's more to it than that. On page 20, they talk about the taxes. Can someone explain to me whether they're going to be paying taxes on that property, or is it taxes related to the tower?
That I don't have a clue.
Okay, it did not feel like a thing out. And then the other thing is that on page 25, they talk about quiet enjoyment. So would they be expected to follow our rules about no work on Sundays, that kind of stuff, speed limits, exits?
I would think, other than any emergency work, I mean, if that cell tower goes down, I would think even if it happened on Sunday, they'd want to get it back up and running. I mean, their clientele will require them to fix that as soon as possible or expeditiously as possible.
Would we be having conversations with them about speed limits and which exit they can go out?
Yes, it would be no different than the tower up here. The only way they're allowed on Sundays is if it's an emergency.
Okay, all right. Any other questions about the contract itself? Okay, let's ask what questions do you have regarding this specific space?
So I'm looking at the picture, and there's this huge blue box that's drawn. So I want to completely understand, is that defining where the guidelines actually go? Because we're hearing that it's only 5 or 6 spots in storage that will be taken over.
It's 6.
6 spots in storage that would be taken over. So that's what we would lose in that storage area.
Well, and it's probably going to encroach on some of the roadway that's out there a little bit. So we're going to have to kind of look at that. There's a fire hydrant right in that general vicinity. So there may be some rerouting around about getting around that corner, but I haven't actually seen it staked out yet. So.
And so the guidelines actually go over the building structures that we have at the end of this. That's what the blue box shows. Am I misreading it? Okay, green box.
Well, Yeah, you have
Are
an
you-
advantage over me. I don't have a copy of that laying in front of me, so you have a little bit of advantage over me. I don't have that with me.
I think the green box is actually going around someone's actual RV.
Well, I would assume that the green box is actually the size of the layout, which would be 30 feet deep and 60 feet wide. So I'm assuming that that's what that is. Show you the actual amount of property that's going to be consumed in there. Oh, no, that's the entire piece of property there which would include all the setbacks required by the city. Because again, the tower is 65 feet tall, so if it was to fall in any direction, it can't fall on any habitable structure. And the maintenance building is not included as a habitable structure because there's nobody there 24/7. They're only there during working hours.
That box only shows a 30 by 40, but I think it's a 30 by 60, and I'm assuming that it would go to the right side of that box as it's shown there on the screen.
Yeah, you're talking about the one that's just very lightly, you just barely can't see that. What I was talking about, the green box, that's part of the setbacks. The smaller boxes kind of encompassing that one RV is only a 30 by 40, which was their original request, but now they want a 30 by 60.
The concern that I have is the loss of spaces there. And in talking to Linda, we have quite a long list of people waiting to get storage spaces. Have we looked at any way to reconfigure any of the open space in there to allow for possibly 6 more parking spots in there for the ones we're going to lose? Is there any way?
I have not even looked at that, no.
Okay.
What is our plan for the residents who would be displaced by this? The people who are already renting space?
Jill answer that one.
We currently have 5 spaces open. As people have canceled their space, we've left them open if this is approved. If not, then we will start calling the people on the waiting list.
So, but do we not have a waiting list? Is there a waiting list?
Yes, there is a waiting list.
So what they're saying is that the people that are displaced here would have higher priority than anyone's currently on the waiting list. Right.
How many people do we have on the waiting list?
Linda?
I didn't quite hear the question.
How many people are on the waiting list for storage? Approximately.
Somewhere between 15 and 20. But remember, some people need a small space, other people need a large space. So the spaces that are being displaced are all 30-foot spaces. So they would have to go to either another 30-foot space or a larger space. So this doesn't affect the 25-foot spaces or anything like that.
The other question I have is, in this configuration, if it takes up 5 spaces, is that what you said, 5? 6 spaces. Some of the people on this board are very skilled at handling big rigs and can back one up, from here to Seattle. I only have a 24-footer. I am not skilled in backing it up. If I was right next to that, could I still back that into a space without having to hire my neighbor to do it? Because it's a square, but we're all going in on an angle. So we're losing 6 spaces, but are we really losing 7 or 8 functional spaces? Steve, you're saying no, we would only be losing 6 spaces that we could get easily in and out of. We would not be negatively impacting the neighbors.
Barbara, I would say that we could impact a seventh space. The one on the east side of the perimeter there could affect it because of it sticking out that far. On the other side, it wouldn't affect it at all because there are angles headed back into that northwest direction. So it shouldn't affect that side,
Okay.
only on that east side.
Any other questions from any board member? Seeing none. Any resident here that would like to come up to the microphone while Sharon's walking? I will.
Barbara?
Yes.
I would like to say that out of those 6 spaces that have been designated so far, 2 are already open.
Okay.
Where people have either moved because they wanted to move or they have given up their space.
Okay.
So we do have 2 totally vacant spaces right now.
Great. Thank you. On the chat, we say that the question was, is T-Mobile going to pay for all the changes, including fire hydrant and reroute the road? And is there a fire hydrant that's actually impacted by this?
With this particular square only being 30 feet deep, it's not going to stick out any farther currently than the units there, because that's a 30-foot section for back ends.
But
So
there's
it's not
not a
going to
fire
stick out
hydrant.
much farther than that. The fire hydrant is actually across the road over by the pull-through areas. So
Okay.
again, until it actually gets staked out, I can't really answer that question affirmatively.
And then the other question is more of a contract thing, wondering what happens if T-Mobile is bought out or merges with another company. We'll look through the contract to get that specified, but typically there is a clause in there that talks about continuity. Just as an FYI, if this does get approved, it would only be approved pending legal review to make sure that all the contractual issues that we as a board need to address are included. Okay. Sharon, go ahead.
Sharon O'Leary, 602. 2 questions. One is, it sounds great that we're collecting a larger amount of money, but if we're giving up 6 spaces, how much money are we giving up out of those 6 spaces for rental? $3,000 a year, so that's okay. The other question is, I gotta back up. Wait a minute. It's coming. Shoot. Oh, yeah. Okay, the land that is owned, the palm tree land is owned by somebody else. What happens to it? They're not using it anymore?
Jill, can you answer that question?
That is AT&T and this is T-Mobile.
Yeah, I got that.
They're using it. It's still in operation.
So
different vendor.
So they're still owning it and they're still using it?
Yes,
So
and
we
they're
don't
still
have anything to do with them?
maintaining. Yes.
Okay, cool.
And Barbara, this is not a lease purchase on the property, correct? In the
I did not
contract.
read that.
Yeah.
I did not read that.
I didn't read that in the
purchase.
contract. So it's not a lease purchase. At the end of the 50-year term, that'll have to be renegotiated again if they want to continue to use the property, because the property still remains our property.
The last question I have though, and I think the number of the board shares this, is that have we looked at all other spots of Happy Trails property to assure that this is the only solution?
I don't know that it's our job to look for their solution. They provided that they wanted to establish a tower out because of the ability of the tower to reach the areas that they wanted. So that's why they selected that spot.
Well, not only that, because of the city of Surprises requirements for the setbacks, that there has to be at least 65 feet clearance and a 360-degree radius of that thing where no inhabitable structures are there. You're going to be very hard pressed to find a piece of land within the resort that accommodate that.
There's another question from a resident on the chat that says other HOAs have contracts for their owners with carriers at discount prices for the internet. Are we going to get special pricing from T-Mobile? I don't see that that's in the contract at all, but it certainly is worth us pursuing as a separate issue down the line. So thank you for that. Any other questions, comments from the residents? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. The motion is that the board approve Cold Creek Consulting LLC to install a T-Mobile cell tower on the east side of the north storage. I will add the word pending legal review. Again, so you're wanting to table it for more discussion? Just a minute. Jill, who made the original motion?
Steve?
Steve, okay, thank you. Oh, yes, DRC. Sure. Okay, yes, if we have the motion on the table that we need to deal with. So the question is dealing with Steve Deal. Steve, would you be willing to rescind your motion to then change it to tabling this motion for more discussion? The issue is that this is our last formal board meeting of the season. It's not that we typically don't have one in May. We could have one tomorrow. How much more information would we need? So that from Robert's rules, we would need Steve to rescind his. So for the board members, how much more information do you need? I hear, go ahead, Becca.
I'm just concerned that more about the residents and getting rid of 6 parking places. That's my concern. It has not been put out. It is not, the question has not been asked. And frankly, I'm not comfortable voting for something that we have not had the input from residents at this point.
Okay. All right. Let's do a roll call vote on this, and if it doesn't pass, then we'll do that. Okay. All right, Jill.
Steve Deal.
Yes.
Ron Woodward.
Yes.
Roberta Ernest.
No.
Marilyn Sorensen.
Yes.
Becca Paulson.
No.
Marie Basham.
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
It's tied, right?
No, it's 4-2. So you don't really have to vote.
Thank you, because I was going to have to recuse myself because I may be one of these people involved. Thank you.
Passes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. So I think we're all in favor of the dollar amount. It's just the residents who might be displaced. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the facelift for the Cascades building. Steve, can you give us a motion?
I move to approve the facelift of the Cascade Building not to exceed $100,000 as we paid for out of operating expenses.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion here to do a facelift of Cascades. So Mike Perry, could you talk to us more about that?
What the BGM committee has come up with is we're going to go inside of that building. In the shower areas, we're going to completely redo the floor, all the partitions, all the lighting, repaint all those surfaces, make that place look nice and fresh. The flooring will be like it's an epoxy resin floor. It looks like chipped concrete that's laid down in there. You've seen it on people's outdoor patios, and it's going to be something very similar to that. It'll be a soft brown color, and then we'll coordinate the rest of the inside of the building like that. We also are going to go outside and cut all the tails off, the more rotten tails that are on, sticking out the fascia boards all the way around the outside of that building. Clean that up and metal that in so that it won't continue to dry rot. Replace some of the soffitting that's underneath the roof line of the structure, and repaint the outside of the building. Let's see what else we're going to do in there. Oh, and there's a possibility that we may have to replace the air conditioning unit on top. It's getting pretty aged, but it is an evaporative cooler, and we're going to replace that in kind. So it's a fairly significant project that we're going to, but the good part about that is that our maintenance crew can do a lot of this work during the summertime when it's super hot, and it's indoor work for them. And it will be able to reduce our costs considerably because all we'll really have to pay for with these guys is the material that they use. So I believe we're going to be able to keep this under budget and have a facility that everybody will be proud of and not like the one we have now.
So Mike, I just want to ask a question though. You just mentioned the air conditioning unit. That's not on the scope of this work that you supplied for us in the budget package. Are you talking that it'll be in addition to the $100,000
No,
that
no,
you're
no, no, no. I think we'll be able to keep it all under that budget.
including the air conditioning unit?
Well, the air conditioning units are evaporative coolers. They're not refrigeration units. And we're not going to change the type of air conditioning. We're going to go back with the same structure. After I got this started, Ron came to me and told Ron Hickerson, our maintenance supervisor, that air conditioning unit is reaching its end of its lifespan and may need to be replaced.
Okay, thank you. What questions do the board members have?
Actually, the air conditioning unit could be done out of the reserve because it is a reserve asset.
Thank you. So you've said that this $100,000 would be paid out of the operating budget. Just as an FYI for the residents, we do anticipate that when we close this year, we should have about a $300,000 excess. So we have the dollars available to spend that. It would be less that would go into potentially into our reserve fund for next year when we finish up.
Yeah, our end goal here is that, you know, we've been working on a project for several years to completely redo that building. I mean, spend a tremendous amount of money on it. And currently we have several large projects that are kind of draining our resources. So if we could do this little facelift, we could push the rebuild of that building out 4 or 5 years. And then I feel like when we're in a better cash flow position, we'll be able to really go in there and redo that building. So that was our intent, that the premise that we were working off of.
So some of the things that we've talked about in previous iterations, potential iterations for the Cascade major reconstruction of it was decreasing the number of shower stalls and commodes. And what I understand is that this project would not be doing any of that. It's just refreshing, putting new things in, and particularly starting with the floor, making it look more aesthetically pleasing and not like maybe a place that if it was on the RV guide, we might only rank a 2. Want to get at least up to a 9, right?
The best analogy I could come up with, it looks like a bathroom on Route 66.
Yeah.
It needs to be a facelift put on it and something that we're proud of, that when people come in, especially when we have this pickleball tournament and we have a lot of usage in that building, something that we're proud of.
Great.
And we're glad that people have a facility that they can use.
Any other questions from any board members? Residents, how do you feel about us spending $100,000 to refresh the Cascades? You have to come up unless you're physically unable.
She's going to use that one over there.
Hi, I'm Bev Youngren, lot 2371. I think you guys are all aware that I'm very pleased that something will be done with Cascade. However, I do have a couple questions. Did I understand that you said you're budgeting 100,000?
That's correct.
Have you had an inspection on all of the dry rot and everything on the outside and got a bid on how much that would cost? Because you talked about replacing so much of that.
Yeah, we're not going to replace it. We're going to remove it. And we're going to cover the exterior of all of that fascia with metal so that there's no exposed wood on the outside of that building.
Okay.
So Bev, one of the things that fascia stuff, the actual, whether it needs to be done, we'll be looking at when we get a bid on replacing the entire roof.
Okay.
Am I correct in that?
That would be correct.
So right now they're going to fix it so it looks aesthetically pleasing and there's not any additional rot that will go on. And then when we do the roofing project there, that entire aspect will be taken a look at.
So when you blow the building up, like in 5 years, you said?
Well, I don't know exactly what the time frame will be. I mean, it's in that we've got it budgeted out to like 25, 26.
Okay.
That's where we've got it set, but that doesn't, we may move it again if we need to.
Okay. The other question I have, you mentioned epoxy floor. That's what's on there now, correct? Isn't that what they did?
Actually, what that is, a painted floor. That's not epoxy. They lay a layer of grout down and then they seal it. And then they cover that with they use a roller and they roll that pattern out. And then they put a clear coat on top of it. And it's not epoxy. It's just like a concrete sealer.
Okay, because what they have there now, I thought was some design that was done in 1950. So do you find that were your bids cheaper to do an epoxy floor versus the large 12 by 12 tiles?
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you're still gonna have to, the whole thing in a nutshell is you got to grind all that stuff off that's on the floor now.
Oh, I
You
know.
got to
It
grind
looks-
all the grouting off of it and get it back down to real concrete again.
Have you gotten a bid to just keep the concrete? Because we've done a lot of big jobs in just using the concrete, not putting tile and not putting epoxy. Have you looked at that as an option?
I have not.
Well, you should. I would suggest that you get someone that is.
You know what? I would be glad for you to come and help me.
I offered to help, but nobody has approached
I'd
me.
be glad for you to help us.
We're
with
approving
that-
this
help us with
project
that.
now, so you'll probably
Okay.
be getting a call.
No, I
I
had
would
offered.
certainly,
I've
and I would
offered
certainly
for
do that.
years to help, but because I do have a construction background, I just want to see it done within the budget, but epoxy doesn't make any sense to me. But you guys are the experts on all of that, and if you have bids on everything, that's fine. I'm quite surprised on that.
I would
Thank you.
I'd be more than welcome your input and come by the house and we'll go through all of it if you'd like. Thank you.
Great. Any other comment from a resident was this has been needed for several years? And then I see Brian's coming up to the stage here.
Brian Zelders, Lot 38. This is a much better idea than what was proposed years ago when there seemed to be a lot of thought that there was an unlimited budget to do something with the Cascade building. This can salvage the building and go forward for X amount of years till we come up with a better design, what was proposed before. There's a lot in that previous design that I thought was unnecessary and that should have been looked at. And at that time, as I said, seemed to be a lot of unlimited funds available. Now we have other things in the resort that are costing us a lot more money, roads, roofs, everything. Inflation has set in, so I think this is something we should take and go forward with. Thank you.
And what I'm hearing is that this is not just putting lipstick on a pig, that it is really giving it a refresh so that we have a building that'll sustain us for a fair number of years, but also be a place that you are very comfortable bringing your guests into. Any other questions from the residents? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. We have a motion to approve the facelift, the Cascades building, not to exceed $100,000. This will be paid out of the operating fund. Again, since it's a dollar amount, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Marie Basham,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Marilyn Sorensen. Marilyn?
Yes.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is the billiards room air conditioning unit. Steve, can I get a motion?
I move that the board approve Kingco Enterprises to replace the air conditioning unit in the billiards room not to exceed $30,000. This is reserve item 1320.
Here a second?
I second.
So as you said, this is a reserve item and it's exceeded its useful life. I just want to make a mention for the other board members who are new. Our policy is that anything over $10,000 that we need to get 3 bids. But the almost 6 years that I've been on the board, when it comes to air conditioning units, we have found that Kingco Enterprises gives us the best product and they're here consistently and we're always comfortable with their bid. And so that's why I'm comfortable with the bid that they've put out here. It is, even though I'm not an air conditioning expert, it seems consistent with other sized units that we've had on other buildings for the 6 years that I've been on the board. Is there any questions from the board? Seeing none, any questions from the residents? Seeing none, let's call for a vote. Again, roll call vote. Move to approve the Kinko Enterprises to replace the air conditioning unit in the billiards room not to exceed $30,000, reserve item 1320.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Marilyn Sorensen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Marie Basham,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Mike Perry, for all the work you do on the BG&M committee. Certainly is more than a full-time job, and his salary is the same as ours, which is 0, but we're going to double his pay for that, so.
Also, Barbara, that unit can be here and installed within 2 weeks.
Wow. Do they do pool heaters too? Sorry about that. Okay, the DRC committee, Marilyn.
I move to approve the design guidelines as presented.
Second.
We have brought the design guidelines, we had brought them to a previous meeting, and we had a couple of issues. And one of the things that we were concerned about was the height of the awning over the RVs, and we have decided to go ahead and raise those to 17 feet. That is just for the awning over the RV. That's the only one that we have acknowledged that height for. And I don't remember, Mike, what was our other issue that we covered?
We had a couple other little things that we addressed regarding skirting on recreational vehicles and a couple other hiccups, but primarily just the height of the awning.
Okay, and the rest of the things we did leave as the same because they did not seem to have any opposition to them. So they will be the same. Thank you.
Any questions from any member of the board? Any residents? And I don't see anything on the chat, seeing none. All in favor of approving the design guidelines? As stated, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And thanks to the DRC committee for all the hard work that they've done. Okay, next thing is the variances related that are coming from the DRC committee.
I move to approve the owner of lot 1391 to be allowed to cover half of the 6-inch, somehow that's not printed right, to cover the 6-inch water main valve cover with the manufactured home. We have a valve. Oh, I need a second. Go ahead. Second?
Second.
We, there's a water valve in the middle of the lot on this particular lot. And in order for the person to put a home in it, it was going to have to, they're either going to have the community move it, or they're going to have to cover the valve. And unless they wanted to do this themselves, and they haven't shown that interest. So are they here? 1391. Yes. Would you like to come up and address your issue?
The issues that we're having is it's right out in the middle of my property.
A little closer, please.
It's in the middle of the property, and with the measurement of the single wide coming in, it will set, the skirting would set right on top of the blue cover, half of it. I've talked to Mike about if they would just give us a variance to move the property line 6 inches, it would move that off of the top of the cover. And I'm sure they could still use it, so.
And are you saying that 6 inches closer to your neighboring lot
Yes,
versus 6 inches closer to maybe a shed or something?
yeah, to the neighbor's lot.
Okay. So how, Mike, where is it? Give us information on the setbacks on that side.
So this is section 6. This radio doesn't work very well. Section 6. So it's a 5-foot side setback. The city of Surprise will allow a accommodation for a 3-foot setback with a 1-hour firewall. However, the limits that we see here is the actual electrical pedestal is sitting in that same location. Now, APS states that they're not going to relocate the area for the pedestal when it's upgraded for the new home being installed. So the problem that we have is we can't get that home to move over enough to really affect the use of that valve, as we're going to use a key that needs approximately a feet to rotate 18 turns to turn that valve on and off.
Just say you need 8 feet to be able to turn that valve on and off. You're breaking up a little bit.
2 feet.
2 feet.
Because of the maneuvering they need to do of it. Okay, so what you're saying is the issue is the pedestal. APS won't allow you to move the pedestal to accommodate it. Is the pedestal, even if this was moved up 6 inches, would the pedestal really have to change? My pedestal out my back is still a good 3 feet from my house.
No, you're right, but the 6 inches wouldn't give access for a key. You wouldn't be able to turn that valve.
The key more for the, okay, so
Right. We're talking, even if there was we even looked at doing some kind of skirting entrance. But if that key goes down 4 feet down in that valve hole, you have to have enough rotation to turn that key to get those valves on and off. And most of the time it takes big burly Dave over here some muscle to turn that valve pretty good. So.
Okay, so moving it 6 inches is something that is feasible from a city perspective, but it still doesn't help us have access to the valve.
Right.
All right. So
Dave, how many houses does that affect if that valve isn't turned off?
Like if
we
we
have a water
abandon it?
break down there?
Jill, so you're saying like if we abandon that?
We heard that.
The difference is instead of turning off roughly 15 homes for a water break, it'll turn off 30.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear
won't make you
15
speak anymore.
homes? 1-5?
Yes, correct.
Say-
So normally, if there's a water break in that area, you turn off 15 homes. With that valve open all the time, you'd have to go to the next valve, so you'd be turning off 30 homes when there's a water break.
Okay, so if the valve is not accessible, then we have to go to the next level, which then would impede an additional 15 people. So 30 people then.
It's an additional 7 houses, so it's over 15 from
Right.
13 from 1401 all the way up to North Storage. That whole strip back there would be affected.
Okay, and then the other option, which I believe you brought this to the board last month, if we remember correctly, was to relocate it at a cost of approximately $6,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So in our board packet, when you talk about relocating it, that's from the yellow spot to the pink spot, the 30 feet or so, that would cost us $6,000 to do?
Right, and the board voted that down last month when the owner asked for the association to cover that cost.
So Dave, let me ask one more question. That it isn't, appreciate the information about 15 homes versus 30 homes if we abandon it. 30 homes would be affected if there's a water leak. Many of the water leaks occurred in section 1, and one by one they're getting fixed. How many water leaks have we had in section 6? How many would you guesstimate?
It'll end up being every single house. I mean,
So none of them have been.
and then if you build a house on top of a valve, you'll have that problem also.
So since it's a newer section, my point is that many of them have not been replaced and are working fine, but down the line, there's the potential that they're all going to have to be replaced.
There's been quite a few replaced in that area.
Well, and this isn't the riser. This is the main EPCOR valve for the 4-inch water main that runs all the way down that back row. So that's the difference we're looking at, not the small risers that are still galvanized versus copper, but those main valves that are located all the way down that back row.
Did you say EPCOR valve?
Correct. EPCOR valve.
And did we put that water line in initially or did EPCOR, does EPCOR own it?
That is
They
correct.
do now, but did we put it in initially, Dave?
I'm sure it was developer at one point in time that, well, the understanding is what happened is those property lines shifted initially when it was plotted with the developer, that we have some of them that set in setbacks, but then they widened some of the property back there that shifted some of those valves, and now they sit towards the center or somewhere unreasonable on the property other than the easement.
I'm probably the only one that thinks this way, but it doesn't make sense to me that a homeowner buys a piece of property and he anticipates that the standard easements that are required have all been met when he bought the property, and now he finds out somebody put a valve in the wrong place and we're expecting him to move it. That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
My problem with it further is that what if, I don't know that area very well, but what if 1403 comes in and wants to do the same thing?
That one does sit in an easement, but that's a good example. There are others that are not sitting in easements.
Yeah,
Yeah, but do we open up a can of worms? People that have junction boxes that they have to reconfigure their build around that because they have to have a 5 or 10 foot easement impedes their ability to build. So if we allow for one, will we not allow for another?
Questions? Anything more from any of the board members? Anything from the residents? Heard a lot of clapping there, so I bet there's some comments. Go ahead. Jim?
I'm living 1388, and I would say between his lot going down, there would only be 7 places, and at least 5 of them that I know of have been changed from galvanized to copper.
So from that, you're saying that you think it would be less risky for us to abandon that?
Yes. I'm not sure about the other 2 lots, but there's only one of them that I'm not sure of, but there's only 7 from his down.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next.
If the lot owner, Arlen Holton, 2311, if the lot owner would design a wrench that would work against the wall like that, would that be acceptable? He could use a ratchet system, he could use the old post over kind with the,
Little slower, please.
if the lot owner made or bought a wrench that would work against the wall without, if that 6 inches gave you access, I mean, you can make a handle that can ratchet around 180 degrees every time he turns it. You could close it just as fast as the old twist kind like Dave uses.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd like to add is that when they put the skirting in, they said they could allow for a removable door right there beside it. So you would still have space there, if, you know, by moving the building over, then you could drop your wrench down in there. Otherwise, it's going to be sitting over the top of the hole and you can't do that.
So you're suggesting that feasibility of you moving it over 6 inches, leaving part of the skirting accessible to us, and then
his suggestion with the
finding
ratchet
someone to
wrench
make
or
a
something else
special
would work
ratchet
fine. So,
that you control, no. That it might be a doable solution.
Well, I don't even know if they need a special ratchet. Mike, can you answer this? If they were to leave a section of skirting that was removable, should it need to be, the valve be opened or closed, whatever? Could they still get in and do that with their key?
I think it's possible. We'd have to measure.
Right down that street, there's a wall built right next to another valve that we have to take the key apart. But now the owner doesn't want us to go on the property to do it. Can you hear me? Down that same street, there's another valve with a wall built right next to the valve. And we have to take the wrench apart and put the key in there and use a crescent wrench a quarter turn at a time. But now the owner doesn't even want us in the driveway to do that.
So if the owner's not allowing you onto the
He doesn't
lot,
want us there. He wants Happy Trails to move that valve in the road also.
what he's saying though is that there's another situation where what he's saying is they have another situation where we should be able to get access to it, but the resident is not allowing them on the property to do that. So would we have that same issue here? Ms. Sharon? Is it our wall? Dave, is it our wall? It's his wall. Okay.
Okay, Sharon 602. Let's always bear in mind that every exception you make, especially a $6,000 exception, is going to come up again and again and again. And all of us have a choice to buy our property and figure out what might or might not be right with it or wrong with it before we purchase. So I don't feel that as a homeowner, I need to be responsible in my money that is represented with all of us to be spent on exceptions.
I don't believe the owner at this time knew when he got the property that he wouldn't be able to use the lot for his house without the water valve.
I'm sorry, Mike Perry, lot 1790. The other lot that we're talking about is 1387. It's further west. It's the second or third house on the end of that of Ironwood. And that valve is located inside that patio area. And there's a fixed wall along there. And we had EPCOR look at moving that valve across the street over into the street. And that was going to cost about another $5,000 or $6,000 to do that. And after the board decided not to approve the first one, I didn't ever bring the second one up because it seemed like a moot point to do. I don't know that the homeowner, in my opinion, the homeowner should know what he has on his lot, but can he be responsible for the whole area being replatted and the developer didn't go back and move those valves into the setbacks? Because here we sit now, we've got 2 or 3 valves up and down the road there that are onto other people's property, and whether or not the maintenance guys can have access to those would mean that we would end up going all the way down to the north storage lot and completely blocking that entire street off when we try to shut the water off.
I do think we have, as a community, a responsibility to the owners in the sense that if we sell lots to people, they need to be functional for the purpose that we're selling them. And thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Darla Gessler, lot 1387. And we did put up a solid wall. It's approximately 6 to 8 inches from the water valve that's on our property. It would be about the same distance that McPherson's are looking at. And when they need to get on our lot, they get on our lot. We don't like it because things aren't put back the way they were found, but we've never refused.
Thank you.
Happy Trails.
Right. So just as an FYI, if there is something that isn't put back the way you want, then that lady right there with the dark brunette hair is the one to chat with about that. Thank you. Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren Hanson, lot 556. My understanding is the motion is to
move it 6 inches.
No, it's permission to block the 6-inch water storage or water valve. Is that correct? Because you're going offline here with talking about moving and all the other different versions that you're talking about. The motion was to
That,
permission to block the 6-inch water main.
right.
It just seems to me that we're getting a
But-
little offline.
But the resident had indicated that he was willing to move the unit over 6 inches, correct?
If I have the variance to do that.
Right. So he would be asking for a variance to actually move the manufactured home from its dedicated space within the 5-foot setback to do it 4 feet 6. That's what, I understand, Lauren, that that's not what the motion says, but we're looking at how we can solve this problem. So what I heard, let me clarify this from the homeowner, is that if you could get a variance to move it 6 inches over to the lot line, and that you'd leave part of the skirting open for us to have access to it, that would be acceptable.
The skirting would be where you can unfasten it and take it out, but it would be in there.
Access,
Yes.
open access.
And that was just a suggestion that I had mentioned to Mike quite some time ago. So I'm not the one that requested to block the valve. If that's what you want me to do, that makes it even easier for me, so.
I'm going to rescind this particular motion at this time. Let me remake the motion so that the owner of lot 1391 will be allowed to have a variance in order to move the unit over 6 inches and allow us access through the skirting to the water main.
I'll second that. So now let's have
Mike?
discussion on that.
Does that help the situation? Do we know this by fact before we start spinning on this one?
We'll have to get with, resort talk about if it says any closer than 5 foot, it has to have a 1-hour firewall rated, on that side. So I don't know if it's gone through factory at this point in time. I don't think it has. It's not ready until July, right, Cliff? Is it July that it's coming through?
Yes.
Okay, so we should be able to contact CAF to make sure they rate that 1 hour with 5-inch sheet rock so that it can sit closer than a 5-foot setback to the property line. It's plausible, yes.
If they can't, then this motion is null and void. We can't move the house over.
A closer than 5 foot without a 1-hour firewall.
Or we put,
All right, then the motion will include the stipulation that the firewall for the unit has been met, the requirements for the firewall has been met. Does that work?
Well, my question is, you said your next meeting's not until end of summer or something like that. This, they were going to go in and start doing the concrete. I have to pour a concrete pad where my current motorhome is, and that's going to happen in May. And the home is already going to be started building, so I can't change my
just table
plans.
this?
That's already in the works.
Because that cement in there, and then you can't get the house in it. And what's it? And the brown pieces are one pieces of something.
I think we've had enough on this. I think let's call for the motion. The motion on the table is to allow the resident to have a variance to move the unit 6 inches over with the caveat that they'd have to have that 1-hour firewall and that the skirting be, have accessible portals so that we could get in the event. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. Next.
Can you just re-clarify exactly what the motion was we passed so that we're all clear on this?
The motion is that they have our permission to place the manufactured home 6 inches into the setback with the caveat that it must meet the 1-hour firewall and that the skirting have a portal accessible to our staff.
Right, and if Mike comes back and says that that can't be done, then this is a done deal. We don't need to be re-meeting or re-voting.
Yes.
Our next item is I need a motion to approve a 2020 Oliver Elite 2 18-foot travel trailer to be allowed to continue to reside on lot 917. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, now do we have a discussion? The travel trailer is against the policy. This would be a variance to leave a travel trailer on a lot. The owner just has it already on the lot and has asked that he be allowed to continue to keep it there. Is there any discussion?
So my comment on this has to do with, this is it's only a 2020 travel trailer. It's quite cute from what I see here on the pictures, but our standards say that it has to be 24 feet. And even if this was a Class A, Winnebago used to have some Class A's, or they called it a Class A, but it was only 26 feet. That, even though, because it's a Class A, you think it could go in the ranch, but it doesn't meet the length requirement of the ranch being 28 feet. So even though it's called a Class A, we couldn't do that. This is a trailer, but it's too short, doesn't meet our requirements.
So let's clarify. When we say requirements, are we talking in the CCNRs or are we talking strictly in the DRC guidelines?
Just the guidelines, I believe.
I believe it's actually rules and regulation.
It's in rules and regs.
Rules and regs, okay, but not the CCNRs.
Obviously, the rules and regs can be changed by the board.
My only comment would be, where does this end? Next year, we get a cute 16-foot and then a cute 14-foot, and I think we have a standard and we should stick by that standard.
We've already had a couple of variance requests on this very same thing, and just within the last few months, I've had one that was looking at a vintage trailer that was nicely maintained. So again, like Ron says, at what point do we not have a guideline? Any questions, comments from the board? Residents, how would you think about us allowing a travel trailer? I get an X back. I don't know if that means they're safe or what, or. Was that soccer or what was that? Sir.
Tim Garrity, 1773. You said you've already had some requests.
Yes.
What did you rule on them?
No, we did not.
Sounds like a good way to keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't see any more comments in the chat. Anything from the residents? Okay. So the motion on the table is the motion is to allow a 2020 Oliver Elite 2 18-foot travel trailer to continue to reside on lot 917. All in favor of allowing this motion? Okay. Oh, are you up for the next one or did you come for ice cream? Okay.
Brian Automoto from lot 291 regarding your 18-foot variance. I believe that there should be really no issue with having an 18-foot on the lot as long as it's not encroaching off the property itself. I have right now in my phone dozens of undersized RVs residing right now and have been for the whole season on the lots, and I don't have any problem with that because I think a lot of times with this 18 footer, it might not be something that we reside in while we're here, but we're using it to go from one location to another. So I have no issues with seeing things that are on the lot. It might not be lived in. I know it's been a rule for quite some time that 24 foot is minimum. But again, there's a few Class Bs on the lots. And again, some of the ruling that I guess gave variance is the fact that it's their only vehicle, but that is proven to be not the case because there is the park model, there's the Class B, and another vehicle. So the variance by itself, to me, is okay. The rule is not being enforced, but then the rule makes no sense to begin with as long as it's on the lot. I've seen 2 RVs, full size, 1 Class A and a fifth wheel on the lot this year. It's all over the place. So to me, I don't feel like if it's on the lot, it's not encroaching into the road, I got no problem with it.
Brian, I'll push back on that. And just because it isn't enforced doesn't mean it's not a good rule.
I
And then-
agree,
and we also-
but why
and we-
have rules if it's not going to be enforced?
Well, we also have residents who are just flagrant violators of the rules too. This is not one of those cases. So it's an enforcement issue that we need to deal with. And as we move forward, we can look at the viability of the rules. But right now, the rule is that it's minimum of 24 feet, and this is 18, which by my math is 6 feet. It's not that it's a 23.5-foot Class C or whatever. And as far as I know, there's only 2 Class Bs that we have allowed in here, and one of them is only their only vehicle. And the second one is more of a fair housing issue. So all the others are in violation.
And we also have a truck camper that's been allowed as well as an only vehicle.
Yeah. So I appreciate your input, Brian, and always good food for thought. Any other comments from any residents?
Your comments to me are evident that we need to do a better job with compliance and enforcement because people get the impression when they drive around the resort that what they see is acceptable. And therefore, if we're not enforcing our rules and regulations, we're leading people to the wrong conclusion, and we need to stop that. So that's a compliance issue, and we need to be more consistent with it.
Yep. Call for the motion here. So all in favor of the motion, which is to approve them to allow this 18-foot travel trailer to reside. So all in favor of allowing it, say aye. All opposed? Aye. Motion fails. Okay.
Our last motion is I move to approve the installation of pavers in a small section of the common area behind lot 322 at the owner's expense. There's a,
I second.
we have a small triangular space. It's up against the resort wall, and the owner would like to put some pavers in it to kind of keep the debris out of his yard. And it comes between that and a green belt. And so they've brought this to the board to consider that possibility of a variance on this piece of property. Is there any discussion?
So my understanding is it's in an area that's really not frequented or accessible by the common group, by the community.
Yes.
It's or visible, it's in the back, but it's used, the member would like to be able to pave it so it's easier for him to keep the debris and stuff out of there, because right now it gets into the gravel and it's tough for him to keep it cleaned out. but it's not a common area that any of us members would walk through on a regular basis anyways.
Yeah, so technically we own it, but it is not. used.
Understand.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board?
It's not visible from anybody else's lot, just the next door neighbors.
Any questions from the residents? Chester's getting up here.
Mike Perry's lot 1790. I just want to have a consideration made that anytime we put impervious cover over the ground, we need to consider, is it causing a drainage issue? We have so many areas in here where people have been allowed to put impervious cover over the ground and cause someone else to have a drainage issue. So as long as that's been a consideration, I'm okay with that.
Yes, thank you. It leads into a green belt, and I believe from the photos that I see now, he actually has some pavers, and it's just more of matching those up, and there's not concrete through there. So any other questions, comments from the residents? I don't see anything on the chat. If there is something on the chat, I can't see it. I don't know if it's frozen or not. Anyway, I will call for the vote then, the motion on the table. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Lauren Hansel, lot 556. When you said this is in a green belt, is it our property or is it association's property or is it golf course property?
We understand it's the association's property. Lauren, being the new golf course representative, is going to be very stickler for details. So the motion on the table is to allow this resident to put pavers on a small section of the common area behind lot 322 at the owner's expense. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. See, we do approve some variances. Okay. All right, next on the agenda, Safety Committee.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve George Morosco as a member of the Safety Committee for a 2-year appointment.
I'll second that. So George is currently the chairperson of the Safety Committee. Any comments, questions from the board? Comments, questions from the residents? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Next on the agenda is from the Activities Department. I'll make the motion. So I move that the board approve the signing of the 13 entertainment contracts for the 2022-2023 activity season. Can I get a second?
Second.
So what we have in front of us is just, we just need to sign the contracts for the upcoming season. It totals over $100,000, $100,500. There's 13 contracts. This is just a matter of just a housekeeping that we need to do. Thelma has already negotiated with these people and using the standard entertainment contracts that many of us on the board have seen before. So it's just a matter of approving that so we can get them signed and moving forward. Any other questions from the board? Residents? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the signing of the 13 entertainment contracts for the 2022-2023 activity season, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next has to do with the clubs. The motion is so I move that the board approve Southwest Billiard Supply to recover 4 billiard tables not to exceed 2,500. Can I get a second? So the Billiards Club is asking that the association pay to have the 4 corner billiard tables recovered. Any comments, questions from any member of the board?
I do. My understanding, and so correct me if I'm wrong, is that I can't use the billiards unless I'm an actual member of the club or I'm a guest of one of the club's members. Is that correct?
I believe anyone can go in as long as they have the code, but I think you have to be a member to get the code. Is Fred here, the president of the Billiards Club?
So it's not like you
It's not like
can-
it's open access.
So, okay, so that limits my ability as a community member to be able to play pool, correct?
In our packet, we have a fair amount of just information from the president requesting this. They state that pool table covers need to be replaced every 3 years. The question I have on that is that based on usage? Now, my mind goes to some of these old movies where the detective goes to the bar and everybody, there's got 6 people around the pool table spilling beer on it, and they're trying to get to the bottom of the perp that's out there. And I can see where they need to be replaced every 3 years. But given our usage, is it something that really needs to be replaced every 3 years?
Does the billiards group have, a club have a league?
Yes,
Do they have people that come in and out?
Yes, to my knowledge, there are a fair number of leagues that they participate in, and we participate, their members participate in.
Right, okay.
Do we have any information? Is Thelma still here? They say that they've got 65 members and their dues are $10 each. Is that 65 members that they have 30 and it's times 2 because they used to include the spouse? Or is it 30 members, or is it 120 members?
We are not exactly sure.
We don't know. Okay. And we don't know whether these people that are coming in for league play have to pay to get in, $10, $5, case of beer.
No idea.
Okay, all righty.
My only comment in the justification is that it justifies the expenses of benefit to Happy Trails community because the Happy Trails Billiards Hall is a main part of the Happy Trails Resort, and upkeep on the billiards hall is important to the entire resort. If only members of the club can use it, then what is the value to the entire resort? I fail to understand that.
I understand there are 11 tables. My question would be the usage as to whether or not that we need to work with this every 3 years. Is there enough usage that every 3 years the tables really need the replacing?
And my question for the club membership too is if they only rely on 600, if they have $10 and they have 65 members, that's $650 revenue. What other sources of revenue does that club get? And are they doing any fundraising to help support part of the cost? And then I asked if Fred was here. Fred is the president. Is there any other member from the billiards? I'll get to you, Marilyn. Okay. Any other questions from the board before we open it up to the members? Yeah, I know. I said anything from the board. No. Okay, go ahead, Marilyn. Thank you.
There is not there is another place that if you as an individual and your family come, they have a pool table at NC1. So don't say that you can't play pool. It's just that they're clubs. And I don't want to get into this thing about if everybody has been able to lock down theirs and it's all public-private property of Happy Trails. But we can't lock the pet club because it's community property. The only reason it is because it's outside. But rules are rules. And I don't see any, they all have property that has to be replaced, some of them. And some clubs can afford to do their own and not ask the board for it. The quilt room has done a lot with theirs, and they're locked. You can't go in there and you can't get the combination to the room, so unless you're a member. So there's a lot of clubs that have that rule to protect the property that's inside from people just wandering through and picking them up and stealing stuff, because we had to lock it because people were, there was money in there and valuable quilts and sewing machines. But to say that it's common ground, the whole place here is common ground, open, and everybody depends what club they want to join, whether you have to be a member or not. But there is a pool table in NC1 for individuals to play, and they do.
Thank you, Marilyn. Mr. Marion,
Feels like I'm back on the board.
yeah, we'll come back up here and vote.
I think within the last 5 years, we completely replaced all the pool tables with new pool tables.
It
that
was
were paid
before
by
I
the
was on the board.
association. When was
Before I
that?
was on the board, so it's been at least 6, but
Okay.
less than 10.
And at quite an expense,
At least 40, if not 70,000 rings a bell.
right? So is it needed? At that time, we were presented with a roster of members, and there was a lot of double dipping.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next,
Tim Garrity, 1773. I have no problem at all paying for resort supplied activities that I choose not to participate in. I got a little bit of a problem paying for resort activities that I'm not allowed to participate in.
thank you. Okay. And I understand that Jill, you and Thelma, who's our activities manager, have gone through there and saw that there was some wear, but there wasn't any damage, and it was difficult to tell that this was a high priority.
That is correct.
Correct, okay. Any other questions, comments? We'll call for the vote. Usually I do dollar as roll call. Let's just do a motion to that. So the motion on the table is to approve Southwest Billiard Supply to recover 4 billiards tables not to exceed $2,500. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Aye. Motion fails. I would just ask that, and I'm sure they will, that activities work with the billiards club to look at all additional fundraising activities that they could participate in. I mean, we have some of those dinner dances that they could do. The exhibitions. Now, that's not an exhibitionist, but exhibitions. No. Okay. All right. They could do. Or maybe that might be a draw. I don't know. Okay. Could be. So the next thing on the agenda is the Happy Trails assessment policy. Let me just get to that. So I move to accept the assessment collection policy. Can I hear a second?
Second.
This policy is just a revision. We've already had one in place that got approved in October of 2020. This assessment change is for a couple of reasons, in that what we learned with our previous one that we had is that it actually incurred some expenses that we really were not suggesting that occurred at that time. And we believe that what this will do is actually decrease our legal expenses. But one of the things that it will do is 2 things, is that it will no longer have the collection fee attached automatically with your first time that you're late. That'll occur much later in the sequence. It'll mean that at 30 days that you've not made your payment, that Jill or one of our staff will be giving you a kind call saying, now, has it been lost in the mail, or how can we help get this assessment paid? Feeling that will help. At 90 days, we will actually be now, instead of sending it to legal, we'll be sending it over to a collection agency. Feeling that we will have a better opportunity to get those costs recovered. The downside from sending it to a collection agency versus having it go through legal is that legal is not able to impact your credit score, but sending it to a collection agency could potentially impact your credit score. So we believe it'll decrease our expenses for legal and hopefully will increase compliance. Where we currently stand with our delinquencies is that we're really not that bad, in that, from what I've heard from Stacy, the industry standard is to be less than 6%. We are less than 2%. So we're really doing a good job. But we have a couple of accounts that are pretty outstanding that we've been really trying to diligently dog. And we believe this will help us get ahead of that a lot sooner. So any other questions, comments from the board that I might have forgotten? Questions, comments from the residents? Hearing none, the motion is to accept the assessment collection policy. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. Great. Okay. Marie, can you do the next one?
I move that the board approve a water conservation project to remove the grass on the corners of Trigger and Happy Trails Boulevard not to exceed $4,000. This will be out of the operating funds.
I'll second that.
I have been working with Hector, our master gardener, and Jill to come up with a plan to take out the grass area that's been on the two little corners, two little areas there at Trigger and Happy Trails, and to replace that with, do we have pictures by any chance to put up? Mike, do we have the pictures to put up by any chance?
No, we don't, Marie.
No? Oh, darn. Well, we've come up with colorful cactus and succulents, because I'm into color instead of just green stuff. Red yucca, claret cup hedgehog, aloe ferox, and aloe vera. And then I told Hector I would donate some pieces of my Argentine giant, which is, lots of people have taken pictures of it. She produces red flowers on that cactus instead of all the white that you see everywhere, and plant that. So it gives lovely, lovely flowers. Anyway, this is to support our water conservation, the efforts that we're going to try and do in Happy Trails.
I have a question in regards to the I believe one of those, Jill, refresh our memory regarding the ownership of that property. One resident owns part of it and the other one does. Is that?
That's the next one, Barbara.
Okay,
that's-
never mind.
Okay.
Never mind.
I have the answer to that, Barbara. Okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
no, that's
Any other questions? Comments?
comments. Question, comments from the residents?
Oh, boy.
I only saw them.
Brian Souders, lot 38. This is long overdue. We've been spending a lot of money on maintaining the grass there, water, and it doesn't match the rest of the resort. If you go down to Dale Evans and Happy Trails Boulevard, you have beautiful desert landscaping. If you go out here to Town Center, you have beautiful desert landscaping. If you go to Trigger and Happy Trails Boulevard, you have a lot of spotty grass where the dogs have been using it. You have water running down the street every day trying to maintain that grass. So it's long overdue to do something there.
Thank you.
Judy Nadamoto, lot 291. I do appreciate removing that grass because it is a eyesore. However, along with the cactuses, that's the correct word, could it be possible to place some seating areas, a small gazebo area for the residents in section 1 there to have some place to like sit and relax other than going all the way down to the actual gazebo by the lake? Just a suggestion.
What she wanted to know is there could be some seating area going in, like a bench, so she doesn't have to sit on the cactus.
Well, I can add this much to that, in that I do know that some of the clubs, theater included, are looking at areas of where they can utilize their extra funds. And I know that I've suggested that that's an idea to pass on. So that's as much as I can I can share with you on that.
Certainly with something
So-
under
So
consideration.
I've certainly thrown that idea into the hat. Because I agree with you. Extra seating along that area is always welcome for walkers, huh?
Well, the other additional thing is having it grass, and it is, even though it says, do not let your dog go here, a lot of people do take their dogs down there specifically to go. So it ends up being an awful lot of reseeding issues too within there. And if you don't have it reseeded, then you got the nice yellow spot. So this, I think, would look a lot better and colorful. Any other questions, comments from the residents? Could you repeat the motion? Could you repeat the motion?
Oh, repeat the motion. Yes, sorry. Okay. Oh. I move that the board approve a water conservation project to remove of the grass on the corners of Trigger and Happy Trails Boulevard not to exceed $4,000. This will be out of the operating budget.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, then.
Okay. The second one is I move that the board approve a water conservation project to remove the grass on the corners of Roy Rogers at the exit gate not to exceed $2,000. This will be out of the operating budget or operating fund as well.
I'll second. So go ahead and
Again,
tell us why.
I'm working with Hector and with Jill. We went over this area. This is, as we said, this is at the gate. Again, 2 grass areas. Again, about the water conservation and maintenance of them and so on and so forth. The plants that, again, I went for color in this area and came up with in the corners. This is the vision that we had, putting in the 2 corners saphoras. Those are the really pretty purple kind of tree-like things. We have them out here in the town center, if you're familiar with those. And then red fairy duster, Angela daisies, which is those pretty yellow daisies. So again, some nice color. And they tend to really blossom in the springtime and during the season when everybody else is here. And to answer the question that you were about ready to ask Barbara, the person that has the kind of wall that joins does not object to us doing this. And again, part of the reason that was the concern in this area too, the watering that's going on in there is also playing havoc with the gate. It tends to rust that gate. So we have some concerns with that gate, and that's in addition. We will be replacing the grass with red gravel, red rock that we've got going on here. I also asked Hector to give it a little bit of texture by putting some river rock spread out there to give it a little bit of look to it.
We
So
still
that's
have
my
a-
vision.
It sounds great. Do we still have a number of residents, well, currently they use that to potty their dogs again. So would the addition of River Rock cause some unsafe walking spots?
It's not going to be that much river rock, just a little piece here and there, just to give it a little bit of texture. But also a reminder that we have it in our rules and regulations that your dog is supposed to do his business on your own lot.
That would be true. That would be true. And how many people follow that? Okay, so any questions, comments from the residents? Sorry, anything else from the board? No. Okay, seeing none. So the motion is to approve the water conservation project to remove the grass on the corners of Roy Rogers at the exit not to exceed $2,000, and it'll come out of operating fund. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Excellent, motion passes. I'm going to make a motion that the board rescind the motion from the February 2022 board meeting that we approved using Zoom for our virtual meeting software. Can I get a second?
Second.
What happened was that when we had the information regarding going to Zoom versus GoToMeeting, the intent of going to Zoom was that number one, it's used by more people. Secondly, we felt that we were having difficulty getting our Canadian residents attached to it. Thirdly, there was the issue of there are some features on Zoom that are better that are on GoToMeeting. And we approved that, feeling that we could get that with going to Zoom. Once we looked further into Zoom, what we realized is that in order to get the same number of participants, we'd have to get 10 licenses, which would cost us $2,000 a year versus around under 300 that we're currently paying for GoToMeeting. And secondly, probably even more importantly, is that many of the features that we were looking at that Zoom had at that time, they are now offering within the current package that we have, such as being able to raise your hand if you're attending virtually. And we can see who would like to make a comment, and then we can easily open it up so we can hear you and not just have to have you type it in. The only thing that we would be still sort of remiss that we think Zoom does better than GoToMeeting is that some of the audio capability on Zoom is better than GoToMeeting. But if it's any indication of what we heard this morning when the board attended a Zoom meeting, we might be a little suspect of that. So that's the reason that we're asking to rescind that and stay with GoToMeeting. Any questions, comments from the board? Seeing none, any questions, comments from the residents? Seeing none, all in favor with rescinding the motion from the February 2021 board meeting on the approval of Zoom for virtual meeting software. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Hey, Barb.
Yes.
Stacy here.
Uh-huh.
If there's a reason ever that you do need to use a very large Zoom account, Homeco has many, and we'd be more than willing, if it ever comes up in the future,
you,
to
yeah.
just make a note of
Yeah,
that.
thank you. The difference is in GoToMeeting, it's 250 participants, and Zoom can give us 300, but we have to have 10 licenses to get that 300 and $2,000. We haven't found the 250 being a deterrent to us at this time. And as I said, GoToMeeting will give us now opportunity to do some breakout sessions, which it did not before. Zoom does. So we feel we're getting the same thing. Plus, we have pretty much all the residents trained on using GoToMeeting. And so hopefully that, so. Yeah, so then this guy said, would the GoToMeeting start working better? Mine's been frozen again for the whole meeting. We've had that issue. And again, I think we get the same issues with Zoom. It was the audio that sometimes we have issues with in GoToMeeting. Next and last motion is I move to approve a new cash register system for the front desk, not to exceed $2,000 plus a $40 a month software charge. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So this system is the same as in activities, and the system would allow the front desk to start taking credit card payments. So Jill, can you give us some more information on this?
The current system we have is over 7 years old, and we cannot take credit card. We can't keep track of inventory, not that we have much inventory.
So is this somewhat equivalent to the Toast system that they use in the Chuck Wagon? I mean, it's not the same because you're not doing a menu, but in that you talk about the ability for inventory and all?
Right, like with transponders and stuff, we can put in how many transponders we purchase, and as they're sold, it takes it off of the inventory.
That sounds good. Any questions from the board?
So is it only for like transponders, or can somebody come in and pay their bill for the month?
My question would be, can we keep it separate? Because the AR for the homeowner payments is totally separate than the front desk transponders and all that kind of stuff. So if we can keep it separate, I think it would be good. But as long as we could, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, I think it should just be for the miscellaneous stuff, the transponders, everything else. Because homeowners have the ability to pay online via credit card as well. Yes, this is a lot more convenient, but it's got to be kept separately to where I don't, I can batch them out separately than the rest of the
I'm
stuff.
assuming in the newer systems, you can set it up to keep however many different kinds of payments you want separate. So I'm assuming they can, I don't know for a fact, but most systems will do that.
So what you're saying though is that you'd like for them to do some additional background on that to see if it's feasible. Was that something that would impact your vote on this?
you could vote with, if it isn't, then we need to bring back a different system in the next time around.
Okay, all right. Okay. Any other questions from the residents? Yes.
I was really just thinking on the fact that if somebody is late and we're trying to reach out to them, and I know we always talk about online, but the first rule is most people run down to the office. So if they have the ability to pay right then, why wouldn't we do it rather than saying, go back to your computer, log on and pay it that way? That's all I was thinking.
Yeah, so does the $40 a month software include the credit card fee, or is that separate? So it's $40 a month for the software and includes the credit card fee?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Because
probably
the
not.
credit card payment is based on how many credit cards go through the system,
Correct. So you're paying $480 a year for the software.
plus credit card fees. Yes.
Yeah, that seems kind of pricey to me.
Well, we're still, so the $2,000 that we're paying is for the data input system, the little computer that's sitting at the desk for that. And then $40 a month for the privilege of using their system. And Becca, you're saying that there would be an additional fee based on the credit card usage that we would pay. And what is the current contract that Activities has? Is it the exact same contract? Or did they get a cheaper thing because it was cheaper then?
No, it's the same contract.
And there's no way that we can piggyback onto theirs just by getting another desktop, if you will, another little iPad?
They're taking $100 off because it is a second device.
Whoa.
Can I say, the one thing I do like about the new system is the reporting. Our current reporting on this one that we have at the front desk right now, it's non-existent basically.
So give me an example of what that report might look like.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the new cash register system for the front desk not to exceed 2,000 plus a $40 per month software charge. All in favor of approving this request, say aye. Let me do a show of hands, please. Okay. So all in favor, all who are not in favor of this particular one. So okay, kids, sometimes they say that I speak softly. So I'm going to speak real slow now. So the motion on the table is to approve this request for a new cash register system for the front desk not to exceed 2,000 plus a $40 software charge per month. So what I've heard from the board members is that they would like to have additional information. Some board members would like additional information before they pass this. So all in favor of the motion as it stands that would approve this new system from the front desk, all in favor of that, please raise your hand. All in favor who want some more information and do not approve this? No. Okay, and Ron, you voted twice. Now, is that an Oregon? Okay. I think that's the University of Oregon. Oh, I think that's really a Wazoo thing. So, okay. Did you guys get 5 downs one time? Yes, you did. Okay. Then there are no variances and president announcements. The only thing is our announcement is that the board will be going back into another executive session after this. We'll take about a 15-minute fluid exchange break. In the executive session, will be discussed looking at our aged owner reports and it's really legal and financial issues. So reminding those people who are seasonal, such as myself, who will be leaving towards the end of the month or so, we really require you to fill out a departure form so we have your accurate address. So in case something happens during the summer, we can get a hold of you. And the only other announcement I have as we talked at the town meeting is that we really don't know where the pool heater is. We know it's in the United States. And we assume that it'll be here shortly, but once it does come, then we're gonna have to hire a crane to move it from off the truck onto it. So this year, it'll be here, but we're doing, Mike Perry and the BG&M and Jill are doing everything they can to get it in and installed just as soon as possible. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Yes. Say me? Jill, can you do a quick?
No, it is not. The majority of the metal is done. They're waiting. They have a stucco person coming to do some corrections to some stucco. And they have areas not metal for the flat roofs. As soon as the flat roofs are done, they'll be back to finish that. And we're waiting on a start date on the flat roofs. Yes, the majority of this is.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.